On November 25, 2018, a Chinese scientist named He Jiankui announced the birth of two babies, Lulu and Nana. Lulu and Nana are not natural humans like you and me, but why? Well, their embryos were genetically edited to provide resistance to HIV. Some geneticists believe this might also enhance their cognitive abilities. Scientists called these babies mosaics and said the gene edited in them is CCR5. To be honest with you, I have no idea what these two terms mean, which is the reason we need to genetically edit humans who are not as dumb as I am. Now let's get serious for a second. You see, even though successful people love to rant about how they were self-made, hungry, mentally jacked, and, how they worked 300 hours every day to achieve success, the truth of the matter is that biology influences how far you can go in life. It doesn't matter how much practice Michael Jordan had. If he were 4 feet tall, he could never have become the best basketball player in the world, right? If Bill Dawes, Alien Mask, or Mercury Zuck had an IQ of 71, what do you think they would do with their lives? Well, Mark Zuckerberg would be my cleaner, and not even a good cleaner. Ich zahle ihm mickrige $5 die Stunde und lasse ihn arbeiten wie einen Galeerensklaven. This then brings us to an important question. What happens if the rich can genetically edit humans who have a higher genetic ceiling? What if rich kids start having higher IQs, taller heights, and better attractiveness than the rest of us? Then you might say, oh, okay, that is definitely against the law, isn't it? You're right, it is currently against the law in the US to edit human DNA and make babies with it, but you know how it is against the law to evade taxes. But all of my friends avoid it, and suddenly, that is legal? Yes, the same thing is happening with children today. In this video, we'll answer 3 questions. First, how are the rich bypassing the law to manufacture superior humans? Second, where does this lead humanity? Third, in the future, how would your kids and the rest of us live or survive among the superior humans created by the rich? You remember the story of Lulu and Nana I shared at the beginning of this video? The Chinese scientist who edited their gene, He Jiankui, might have been influenced by Russian geneticist Nikolai Timofeev-Resovsky, who in 1934 started promoting the idea of genetic engineering. But what is genetic engineering? According to Timofeev-Resovsky, if we can manufacture good phones, good clothes, and good cars, good car, why can't we just manufacture better humans? After Jiankui's news broke in 2018, most governments of the advanced economies rushed to pass a law that criminalized genetic editing. But guess what? It was too late. In the US today, it's illegal to edit the DNA of an embryo and make it a baby the way Jiankui did. But it is 100% legal, provided you have the money, to select an embryo. Using PGTM, testing for single gene disorders, and PGTP, polygenic risk scoring, the rich are now designing their babies. But how does this work? Well, let's say this is your wife. Instead of going to some dark room and do some dirty gymnastics, as all your ancestors have always done to produce a baby, you would go to some lab. Through IVF and the power of science, you and your wife can screen 100 embryos and pick the one with the highest score for specific traits. By the way, yeah, your wife is so beautiful. I'm jealous. If your 100 embryos don't provide a perfect human, you can go for a 3-parent baby. If that doesn't give you what you want, you can, you can pay 6 figures for some Ivy League athletes or some genius donors among Harvard students. But what if all of these failed? Well, you know how the rich relocate their businesses to tax havens? You can do the same with your baby. You can travel to countries with no regulation on gene editing. As long as you have money, you can now create a perfect child with a perfect IQ, perfect height, perfect eye colors, and perfect health. Founded by Stephen Shu, companies such as Genomic Prediction can now help you identify embryos with a high risk of low IQ, height potential, and risk of complex diseases like type 1 diabetes, breast cancer, and heart disease. If you have around $50,000, this company provides a genetic index for each of your embryos, allowing you to choose the baby with the best health/intelligence profile. Orchid Health promised to help you screen your embryos for thousands of diseases. Diseases, we're right? But when you go to the page where they list all the genes they screen, some speculate that at least 10 of these genes are associated with intelligence. Myriad Genetics, the Fertility Institutes, Nucleus Genomics, and many more laboratories can help you choose a perfect baby with a perfect height, eye color, low tendency for diseases, and most importantly, a higher IQ than you would probably get through your bedroom exercise. Now you might ask, what is the difference between a child produced by this selection and a child you got after the gymnastics in the darkroom? Well, imagine a raffle draw in which you have to pick a paper. Whatever you pick in this paper is what you get, even if it is nothing. That is what natural conception looks like. Now imagine that in the same game, certain people are allowed to pick 50, 100, or even 300 papers, and then select which of the 300 they like to get. That is what is going on here. If you're not that smart, handsome, or tall, you could pay for elite sperm from donors who are 6'5", handsome, and with a verified IQ of 140 plus. While you could claim that the kids produced from these selections are not genetically modified, the rich could easily get the same result from this selection as they would from genetically modified kids. Hence the reason why this video is titled the way it is. This then leads to a scary question, which is, where does this lead us to? What happens in the next 20 or 30 years when the designer babies of today grow up and they become the elites of society? What happens to the children of the poor who are depending 100% on nature and are born with different imperfections? Experts such as Lee Silver have predicted that, due to designer babies, the human race might be divided into two races. Gen Rich, who were chosen in the lab by the rich, and the Naturals, who came to the world through poor people. Francis Fukuyama predicted that there may be a new race of aristocrats, whose claim to superiority is rooted in nature, not just money. While I'm definitely not as smart as these dudes, I think their predictions will not come to pass. While many people are worried that the Gen Rich would become rulers of the world and make the Naturals their servants because they are biologically superior, I don't think that is what will happen. I think the rich would be happy with their manufactured toys for about 2 decades, then reality would set in. But what would those realities be? Well, the rich will eventually realize that human imperfections are features and not bugs. Let me explain what I mean. In his 1883 book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, My Third Uncle, Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about what he called der letzte Mensch, meaning the last man. In this book, Nietzsche argued that struggle is the essential catalyst for human greatness, growth, and the development of the soul or spirit. According to Friedrich Nietzsche, perfection would lead to stagnant, apathetic, and mediocre humans, even though humans desire perfection. In his 1992 song, Anthem, Canadian singer-songwriter and novelist Leonard Cohen wrote, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Cohen argued that human beauty, wisdom, and creativity only exist because of our flaws, our brokenness, our failures, and our vulnerabilities. Take, for example, Albert Einstein reportedly had Asperger's, which led to his social detachment, but his social awkwardness led to a single-minded focus, which allowed him to ignore established physics and imagine the impossible. But what if we had removed Asperger's from Einstein's life? Well, you might have a perfect human with no fault, but you would never have Einstein. Winston Churchill reportedly had bipolar disorder. That was why he had unrealistic stubbornness. Needed to believe Britain could win World War II when every sane advisor said they should surrender. What if Churchill were a perfect human? Well, all of you watching this video will be speaking German by now. Es ist etwas Erhabenes, die Welt zu dominieren und die Macht der arischen Rasse zu offenbaren. Der Mutter aller Rassen. Sir Isaac Newton reportedly had autism/ADHD, which made him reclusive and obsessive with science. Thomas Edison struggled with partial hearing loss. Nikola Tesla and Charles Darwin had OCD. Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr. suffered depression. Sir Richard Branson has dyslexia, even my big brother and fellow anti-Semite. Kanye Nutt has bipolar disorder, which is why he lost $1 billion in a single day. Oh, okay, but what do all these analyses mean? Well, almost every successful human has a demon they are fighting with in their private life. Some succeed because their mental ailment forced them to be a perfect fit for the problem they needed to solve. Some succeed because their physical disabilities make them a different human, and that specific uniqueness is all they need to beat everyone else. Others succeeded because they didn't have an extremely high IQ or because they are ugly, which then forced them to find a different path, which eventually led to huge success. So if you play around with hundreds of embryos, to find a 6'5" tall man without any medical or mental issues and with a superior IQ, you have created for yourself a pet. Let's call him a dog that will make you happy for 20 years, but that dog would most likely not win in the battle of life. Human potential is like a battery. In physics, you can't have a flow of power with only a positive terminal. You need the negative pole to create the tension that makes the energy move. If you fix a battery by removing the negative side because you think negative is bad, you don't get a better battery, you get a paperweight. It's the same with us. Our imperfections are features, not bugs. Some of us need to have bipolar disorder to achieve their life purpose. Some people need to be short to achieve their purpose. Some of us need to have low IQ so that we can make YouTube videos for the rest of you, geniuses. Thanks for watching.